Yes, hi Dee. My name is Brandon. How are you today?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there, trying to make the best of a bad situation, as always here.
Understood. How can we help you today?
Well, I'm actually thankful that you all are answering the phones now. For a while there, I couldn't get through to anybody. I'm dealing with a situation around the Zanesville area, Muskingum County area, with the public servants out here, and I'm at this point not quite sure how they're getting away with it. Um, I don't know. I'm a little puzzled as to how they are getting away with this extreme malfeasance out here. I'm a veteran, served in the U.S. military, and uh, I I don't know. Without getting too far into it, I have been mistreated. The Second Amendment has been infringed and violated. My property's been stolen. My life has been threatened. At one point, I thought they were going to kill me because I called and asked them to do their job. Um, and them being uh, the municipal corporation, the mayor, the public service department, and then of course the public safety department as well. Being that they're the ones that are supposed to be charged with investigating uh, code infractions and violations and crimes, so to speak, and so they essentially considered my calls for service as harassment and obstructing of official business, even though my calls were for them to do their official business. Um, and they never did. And they always refused. So I'm calling to notify Mike DeWine about the situation. Um, at this point, I've attempted to address it through the courts and with the mayor, and no one seems to want to respond or pay attention. And so it's kind of forcing my hand to begin processing some claims against the individuals for their actions and the damages that they caused to my estate. Not just for the property that they stole from me, but the damages from the direct actions and also the sanctions that they have put on me um, as a result of all of this fiasco and fraud. Um, I don't want to go too much into it. If you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. I don't want to sit here and give you an hour dissertation about my experience, um, but I'm not sure what to do at this point.
Okay. So you're saying the public safety mayor's office, and there was another branch that you mentioned.
Well, I dealt with the public service department as well, which is a department of the municipal corporation. I guess they would call it the city of Zanesville. Um,
Okay.
I'm trying to figure that out what the actual terms are because corporation name is different from the actual government name and so forth, and it gets a little uh, confusing with all the jargon. So I'm just trying to learn all the jargon and how to speak.
And what type of code infractions were you reporting?
Disturbance of the peace, possible violations of the noise ordinance. I have been dealing with excessive disturbing noise levels from local area business operators operating heavy machinery and equipment um, all night long. And it's extremely disturbing to me. Whether my windows are open or closed, it makes no difference. Their noise at times will echo throughout my whole entire house. And I have a pretty large house. Not to toot my own horn, but I've attempted to go into different parts of the house where I could possibly get away from the sound and the noise and get some rest and relaxation at night. And it's so loud that I can't get away from it. And initially, with me being newer to the area, I wasn't familiar with the area and what potential sources could be making the noise. So initially, I reached out to the city, different departments and representatives, inquiring about where the noise could be coming from, hoping that they might do an investigation to help me determine where the noise was coming from, and ultimately get the business operators to mitigate their production noise at night. During the day, I get it. There's business hours, operating hours, but at night it's supposed to be peaceful and quiet. And for 4 years now, I have recordings going back to 2018 of at various times of just ridiculous levels of noise, very disturbing levels of noise, heavy machinery and like the beeping sound of heavy equipment backing up, like a backhoe or a excuse me, like a front loader backing up. They're making that beeping noise. Um, I hear that constantly. There's constantly crashing noises from. There's a place called the Stave Mill. It's a company that makes wood barrels, and so they have trucks bring in whole trees on trailers, and then they break down those trees through a sawmill and cut them into wood planks, and then they make the wood barrels for, like, I guess, liquor aging and other uses. So they run that sawmill all night long. So there's the noise of them unloading the trees and loading the trees, making all the noise from that, the heavy equipment from that, and then all of the machinery that runs the sawmill, the saws and everything else. I don't know if they've got a generator to power all of that, or if it's a sound of the saws running, but it's a constant roar of machinery all night long. Um, I've complained about it. I've sent links to my recordings. I posted them on a YouTube channel. I've sent the links, emailed the links to people, representatives in the city, different departments, and especially the public safety department. Um, there towards the end, before I just quit complaining about it altogether, because they threatened my life and stole my property, and I ended up spending time in a cage because I called them and asked them to do their jobs. Um,
Who specifically did that?
well, it would be the county prosecutor, Michael T. Hughes. He was the one that headed it up. Initially, though, it was through the police department, the Zanesville Police Department, and he goes by Thomas Porter, but I believe his legal name is Sean Thomas Porter. Um, he's tried multiple times over the years, and there's records of this in the municipal court online search for the court records. They have attempted multiple times over the years to get charges of telecommunications harassment to stick against me. And so multiple times I've had to fight it in the municipal court and so-called beat them at their own game. Unfortunately, I've been harassed because of all of this. I just want peace and quiet at night. I just want to be able to enjoy this property and actually get peace and quiet at night like they're supposed to be. And because I've asked for that, and then after dealing with it for a couple of years, getting frustrated and having these dispatchers at the police department refuse to do their job, tell me that it's not their responsibility, it's the county's responsibility, which is a flat out lie. Uh, I mean, this is all in public record too. I was dragged through a court proceeding through the county court uh, with the charges, the telecommunications harassment, which I think was a misdemeanor, and then obstructing of official business, which was a felony charge. Um, Even though I provided a lot of exculpatory evidence to the prosecution, they ignored that. I uh, brought out that evidence in my presentation for my defense. I was forced to quote unquote represent myself. I tried to explain that I couldn't represent myself. I can only present myself, but tried to explain my identity, who I am, but they didn't care about that. They were interested in forcing the matter through so that way they could profit off of it. Um, I mean, I did nothing wrong. I mean, yeah, maybe I got upset, but there's nothing wrong with that when people are refusing to do their jobs that they're getting paid to do. These are public servants. And when I constantly got to deal with the aggravation of not being able to sleep or getting rest and relaxation, and I constantly got to hear this loud noise and noises that sound like or similar to the tornado sirens or severe storm warning sirens, it tends to keep me on edge a lot. And now it's misery. It's absolute miserable. It's absolutely miserable trying to get any rest or relaxation here. And I'm at some point probably going to have to walk away from the property because I can't deal with not being able to get any peace and quiet here and the constant aggravation of that. But then also Now, every time I walk out my front door, I've got to look over my shoulder and I've got to wonder if they're going to come after me again. After how many times they threatened my life, put guns in my face, and threatened to kill me and stole my property, and all because I called them and asked them to do their jobs. But
Yeah, wow. I'm sorry this is something that you're experiencing and have been going through. Okay, now let me ask, have you by chance reached out to the county commissioner's office?
I have. I tried at one point. I believe I tried to email some of the commissioners directly. I also reached out to the city council member that's over this particular area of the city. I guess however they have it set up. I guess in the wards or whatever. I'm not real familiar with that whole setup, but trying to learn out how their setup is. I've reached out to all these people to make them aware before and after. And this most recent court action happened. Let's see, towards the middle to end of last year. I was arrested. Had my life threatened and arrested in actually June, like around June 4th or June 5th of last year. And then eventually had the trial. Let's see, I think the trial was in August or September. And then there was a sentencing hearing in October. But even trying not to get too far off topic or not to get too far ahead of myself. Even the jury, because I demanded a jury trial. I figured at the very least, if I can get 12 human beings that aren't part of their system to pay attention to what's going on, I can present what happened well enough. I can articulate it well enough, and I had enough evidence to present the facts that I was asking them to do their job, and I had the Ohio Revised Codes to back it up to show that it's their responsibility, not the county's responsibility. And I even asked them, I cross-examined them in the court hearing. There was in the Court of Common Pleas for Muskingum County, case number CR 2021-0340, I think. I don't have it right in front of me. It's up going off memory. But I cross-examined the witnesses, and the witnesses were 3 dispatchers from the local police department, from Zanesville Police Department, and the 4th witness was the law director, David Tarbert. All 4 of the witnesses admitted on the stand under oath that, number one, they weren't aware of Ohio Revised Code 715.49, sections A and B, where it describes that it's the municipal corporation's responsibility to address a few different issues, but namely, it mentions disturbances of the peace and noise issues. It even goes on to say that it mentions something to the regards of if there's an agreement between the municipal corporation and the local township, the adjacent township, there's something about an agreement being there that might make it easier. I can't remember the wordings exactly. I'm paraphrasing. I explained all that and even read the Ohio Revised Code during the court hearing in my cross-examination to ask these witnesses if they were aware of it and to make them aware of it. They said that they weren't. And this is after years of dealing with this and complaining about it. Even the law director wasn't aware of it. So they had no idea they even had a duty to act, to investigate it. And the law director, according to, I believe it's Ohio Revised Code 3767, there's some sections in there where it describes it's a law director's responsibility, or potentially the police chief's or public safety director's responsibility, whomever is designated to address the situation with the court or through the courts. So they would have to create paperwork, file it with the courts against the business operators or the owners, the principals probably. I don't know. I'm not an expert in all that process, but they should know what to do. But because going back to 2018, when there was a different mayor in office, there was a gentleman named Jeff Tilton. I say gentleman. I only say that because I'm being polite. So this guy was a former employer of one of the companies that makes most of the noise, disturbing noise at night. What I found out eventually was that he had worked for that company for almost 40 years before becoming mayor. And back in December of 2018, this was when the first incident happened, when they tried to charge me with, oh no, actually, this was before they started telecommunications harassment stuff. They lied. They fabricated a inducing panic charge. Someone lied and said that I was at City Hall threatening violence, according to the police report, which sounds ridiculous, anyways. I mean, non-specific. It was just at City Hall threatening violence. I was never at City Hall. I never threatened anybody, and I even recorded the conversations with the people that I was talking to that day, especially as evidence. They ignored all of that. So they manipulated through the municipal court at the time. And I tried to fight it. I hired a private attorney, then realized I was getting ripped off, and filed a complaint with the Supreme Court of Ohio Disciplinary Council because of the misconduct. And because of that complaint, I found out that the attorney that I hired was paying for out of pocket was actually working against me. We're trying to work with the court to get me thrown in some kind of situation. I don't know if it was jail. I can't remember exactly what the situation was. So anyways, I fired the attorney, make a long story short. As soon as I did that, the quote-unquote judge at the time, William Joseph, he's the senior of the, I guess, junior. I don't know if they're actually senior and junior or technically, but it's a father and son. The father that was the judge at the time, quote-unquote, for the municipal corporation, his son is sitting there now. But anyways, the father had fabricated a plea deal, which I never agreed to or signed off on, to end the case. And that was my first experience with the courts or with getting in trouble with the police, any of that kind of stuff. So I'd only heard about situations and never really thought that this was possible until relocating here. So I mean, there's a lot more I could tell you through over the years, all of the harassment, the intimidation that I've endured because of these people, all because I've asked them to do their jobs. I've asked them to investigate these noise issues. I've investigated it myself. I've tracked down multiple sources of the noise, and I've provided my evidence to them, and they refuse to do the right thing. Instead, they decided to destroy my life, or attempt to destroy my life. I ended up spending 56 days in a cage, all because I asked them to do their job, along with now dealing with constantly getting the flashes of their guns in my face and threatening my life because I asked them to do their jobs. I never went down to the police department and caused any problems. I never walked up to their cruisers and yell at them. I don't harass them. I just simply call them, and when they act stupid on the phone, I get very direct. It must be because of my military background, I don't know, but they don't like that. And so I guess they've mistaken my directness as harassment or something, I guess, because that's just how incompetent they are.
Challenge of authority.
Yeah, that could be part of it too. Because when I called them public servants, they got offended and said, "I'm not a public servant. I work for the city." And, well, I mean, hello.
Right. Kind of one and the same.
Yeah, I mean, these people just aren't that bright. So I've just done my best to endure everything. After the bombshell that landed in that when the jury supposedly found me guilty, even though the evidence proved the contrary. They even said that I caused harm to the community. I can't remember. There was a designation that they put on there as well to make it sound like I caused harm to people, which no one was harmed. I even asked that specific question to the witnesses. Was anybody harmed, injured, or hurt because of my actions? And they said no. So it was all based in fraud, completely and entirely. And I've tried to address that. I've provided all the evidence that I had, exculpatory evidence, to the prosecution, to the court, and I've even filed other complaints. At this point, my next step would probably be filing with the federal district court. I think that's what it's called. Um, but to be frank with you, and excuse the language, I'm pissed off at the fact that I, as a veteran, am having to deal with this in this manner. I'm having to learn this whole process because I can't trust these attorneys. They don't work for me as a man. They work for the courts and they work for the bar association, and so they don't seem to work for my best interest, at least in my experience. I mean, who knows? Maybe a lot more money might get that, that type of service, but um, you know, I don't know. I could expound on that, but I won't. I don't want to digress too much. Um, I am appalled at the fact that I've had to endure this as a veteran. I've done everything I've been able to be responsible, to get to the point to where I could either be a owner of a property or a holder of a property, or just be in a position to where I can enjoy a private property, no matter what the capacity or what my title is or anything like that. Excuse me. No matter where I find myself, there are established laws and there's established codes that apply to corporate persons. Not only the companies operating in the area, but also the corporate persons that are acting on behalf of, say, the municipal corporations, the police department, the public safety, public service department, the mayor's office, whichever department or offices acting, on behalf of that corporation. They're charged with the responsibility of protecting the community and enforcing these so-called laws. Now, for some reason, what I've gathered is they think out here that because Ohio is a home rule state, there's a designation of a home rule status with Ohio. So it provides some extra authority, apparently, through the legislation to the municipal corporation to govern themselves. And as much as I get why that's put in place, these people have used that as a license to stretch the bounds of their authority. And so they think that they have the ability to suspend Ohio Revised Code or suspend the Constitution or suspend Supreme Court rulings or establish laws, especially even federal laws at that. I don't know where they got this idea from, but they only have the ability to govern themselves within those boundaries that have been established above them. It's like a funnel, if you will, and I guess they don't understand that, and so they feel that they can just do whatever they want. They feel that they can threaten my life and steal my property, which was a firearm or a gun, whatever you want to call it. Seems to be a lot of semantics with those things these days. But for me, it's the ability to protect myself and defend myself if I'm ever in a situation where I need to. And being trained in the military, I mean, it's not like I'm just some punk running around with a gun. I only use it to protect myself, and they stole it from me. It wasn't even part of the situation. I just happened to have it on me when they came and threatened my life, and I didn't even want to twitch or budge because I thought they would just shoot me dead. And after my service to our country, I'm shocked that it seems to be that Ohio is okay with treating veterans this way, and allowing me to be terrorized in this way. And for years, well, for a year now especially, but for the last couple of years, I've had to look over my shoulder, and every time I'm outside, I've got to keep my head on a swivel because I don't know when they're going to show up again and threaten my life. Now, I've stopped poking the bear. I stopped calling them and complaining about the noise. I stopped asking them to do their job, basically. So I think that might have stopped them from coming around to harass me, but I never know. I can't trust these people because they don't seem to know how to do the right thing. Um, it's beyond. I don't know, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's beyond understanding. And that home rule status is something that I've always questioned because it does shield certain situations from being able to have oversight. Case in
Yeah,
point, what you're currently dealing with, especially in a smaller town where everyone knows everyone, people are a little more uneasy to go against the status quo
yeah.
for fear of retribution upon themselves. Um, the option of changing courts, applying to a higher court, is probably the best option at this point. I can definitely send this over, through to the governor, maybe see if there's anything that some of our higher ups can do or consider. But that home rule law really locks us into a box.
To a degree, I get what you're saying, and just with that being mentioned in the conversation, I should also mention that I have forwarded as much as I can of this evidence and information to the Department of Justice and the FBI. I have sent them affidavits that I have filed, copies of the affidavits that I've filed with the court, had notarized. I, uh, I also, and let me mention before I forget, I have a YouTube channel that I've been posting a majority, or not a majority, a good bit, I guess I should say, of the interactions and the phone calls. I've posted some of the documentation on a YouTube channel just to kind of get a public record of everything because I'm shocked that any man or woman would be forced to deal with something like this when all you know what I mean? Like all I've asked for is peace and quiet, and now I've got a fear for my life, and now I've got to learn this whole other process of how to access the courts and how to file paperwork with the courts and all this stuff, um, and do all because they don't want to do their job. And I can't find anybody that's willing to hold them accountable. The Attorney General's office tells me they give them special treatment because they're police and they're public servants and public safety or whatever. I can't remember the terminology they used exactly. But I've notified the Attorney General's office. They're like, "Oh, we don't handle that. Sorry." I'm like, really? That's not what your website says. um, but anyways, yeah. So the YouTube channel title, nothing provocative. It's two words. First word exhibited, like in a courtroom as an exhibit. But past tense exhibited, and then the word meat, MEAT, like just something to chew on, just play on words. But I've got presentations on there. I've got recordings of the noise that I've been dealing with, even up until recent, that I've posted on there. I've got documents that I've sent out. As a matter of fact, just recently, I sent out documents to Kelly J. Cottrell, which I believe is Joe, his middle name, Kelly Joe Cottrell. And then Michael T. Hughes, I can't remember what his middle name is. All I could find was the initial. He's one of the assistant prosecutors for the county. I sent out documents that I had handwritten to them declaring fraud in the case, in the matters of specifically the case that I mentioned to you, and all affiliated matters to get to that point because it originated in the through the city police department, and then I was at the city jail for like 10 days in like a solitary confinement type situation because I was in fear for my life and I didn't trust them, so I just stayed in holding. But anyways, so it started there and then went through the municipal court, and then they kicked it up. Somehow they manipulated the court systems and got an indictment for the felony and kicked it up into the county court, and they transferred me over to the county jail. And then, man, I could go on so much more. At the time when all this was happening, I had a civil suit that I filed in the county court against the city regarding all of this. And so they have two main judges in the county court of common pleas for Muskingum County. There's Mark Flegel and Kelly Cottrell. Well, when they first got the indictment and sent it over to the county court, they assigned it to Mark Flegel, which I think it's Mark C. Flegel, if I'm not mistaken. He was already assigned to the civil suit that I had filed. So I sat in jail for a week, or almost 10 days, I think, until they realized that he was assigned to both cases, the civil suit that I had filed and also the criminal case that the city sent over that they procured the indictment out of. So it was he had to recuse himself. But I had to sit there for like a week to 10 days until they figured that out, and then they assigned it to the other guy. And anyways, I don't want to get too far. It's I can get really emotional about it. So it's a mess. But yeah, so I've attempted to address this in the court locally, and based on my experience, the best that I can surmise is it's nepotism at its extreme. They're all buddies. They all know each other. I think you even kind of mentioned that about smaller towns, like kind of being a problem. And I don't get it. All I've asked for is peace and quiet at night. That's all I want.
Yeah, as any good American would.
Right.
With all the work that we have to do, we just want to come home and have peace.
Right, and even if we don't work, even if we're retired or whatever situation we find ourselves in, we should be able to enjoy the peaceful nighttime. Well, just not the peaceful nighttime. I guess I'm. Yeah. 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 I'm glad you guys answered your phone, because I've been trying to get a hold of the governor's office for quite a while about this over the years, and I've been emailing and trying to call, and for the longest time, for I think 2 years, I kept getting an automated system telling me that the voicemail was full. I couldn't leave a message, and nobody was answering the phone. So I'm very thankful that you answered.
Yeah, we've had a chance to get back into the office. At one point when we were at home, there were tens of thousands of emails. So we weren't in the office to answer the phones. We had to do everything via email.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they had you guys work from. I forgot about all that.
So it was closed down for a while, but now we're back in the office and ready to assist any way we can. But there's times like this. I've had other issues, not similar to yours, but dealing with that insulated environment and not being able to get the proper assistance by going through the channels that are set up for that, because they're all interconnected in some way, whether it be through family or just for the fact that they've been there with each other for years.
Yeah.
So there's a camaraderie that's there that is bigger than anybody else they'll rather negate someone else before bothering their circle. I'm looking here at the YouTube channel. Is there just the 3 videos, or are there more?
Oh no. Yeah, there's it goes back to 2018. There's probably, I would say, at least a couple of hundred.
Okay, I see it now.
Maybe 100 or 200. I don't know. I kind of lose track. I put a couple on there. I've been getting working on my car too. So I just recently put a couple of videos on there about my car. I had some issues dealing with some fraud with some local area mechanics, and was posting some information about that, and then a little bit more about the process of trying to get my car running, which is what I hired the mechanics to do in the first place. So I was just kind of using that as another example. It just seems to be a rampant issue here where they seem to be okay with fraud in this area. And it would seem to me that it's because there is no real accountability or oversight.
I'm looking at one. There's a police officer kicking the door.
Yeah, that was the original. That was my first posting. That was back in 2018. There's 2 clips there of the incident. There was the first interaction where they were pounding on the door. I went to the door to find out what was going on, and they were trying to coax me outside, and I feared for my life, so I came back in. and shut the video off. But then they started kicking my door, so I turned the video back on and went out to find out what the hell was going on, and went outside. And they arrested me and manhandled me, and I think I had a panic attack at one point, blacked out, and yeah, it's been a nightmare. But that was the first incident back in 2018 in December when they came to assault me. They tried to accuse me of inducing panic. That was when they said that somebody lied and said that I was at City Hall threatening violence, which I was never even at City Hall. I never threatened anybody or anything. They came to this property and threatened me and induced panic on me. So it was pure gaslighting, in my opinion, and I got the evidence to prove it. But yeah, anyways, I don't want to get too far off topic. I'm still a little sour about that.
Thank you for letting me see that. There's some people I want to show this to. Um, See if there's anything that can be that. Because just seeing the beginning of that video gave me chills.
Yeah, it's made me fear for my life multiple times over, and I've even tried to get help through the VA because of it, which I've found very little support or help with dealing with the emotion, the idea, the facts that I'm being terrorized by people that are supposed to be protecting the community. People that are supposed to have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, protect the people, and so forth. I can't remember the exact words of all the oaths off the top of my head, but nonetheless, what they're doing it's direct. It's a direct contradiction to what, excuse me, to what they should be doing.
Yes.
And as a veteran, I, I don't know. Maybe that's why I've just stuck with it for so long and not let them get away with it, because of the principle of the thing. And I didn't serve my country. Excuse me. I'm no hero, but I didn't serve my country to come home and be terrorized and have my life threatened by people because they don't want to do their jobs.
Absolutely. That is no kind of treatment that you should be receiving. My gosh.
All I've asked for is for common sense and logic from these people, and all I get is bigotry and judgment and and more terrorism. But sorry, I think I might have cut you off.
No, you didn't.
I don't want to
I'm
ramble.
definitely going to forward this along. Like I would absolutely take that step higher to the federal level. But I'm definitely going to get this around to the people who need to see it here in this office for you.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, and I'm more than willing and more than happy to answer any questions if anybody needs any clarifications or, like I said, I've got a lot of the information posted there on the YouTube channel, a lot of the evidence as well. A lot of the evidence is also publicly available through the courts, the transcripts for the court hearings, even the online docket information. It shows where you can see where I was filing paperwork, I was filing affidavits, I was trying to get on the record the truth, to try to get these people to adhere to some type of standard. And they just refused to pay attention to anything I had to say or any documents that I filed or anything. And I've just had to like go through a crash course to learn about the court systems and how to operate in a court system. And one of the first things that I learned was how to challenge the jurisdiction of the court. And there's a video on there of me challenging the jurisdiction of the court because I felt that they were out of line. They were assuming jurisdiction that they didn't have. And even though I didn't know a lot at the time, I didn't know enough, but I knew as much as I could gather in the time that I had to get to that point, to be prepared, as much as I was. Anyways, I don't want to ramble too much. Yeah, so there's a video on there of that. I've got some other interactions. Tried to reach out to the mayor, Donald Mason, to just get some feedback and to make some sense of this and how he's allowing this. How these people, like all these people, seem to be okay with it. and I think, like you said, it's just that it's that insulated atmosphere where they're afraid to step on each other's toes, whether it's the secret societies that they're a part of or their what do you call it, the good old boy mentality where they grew up together and so they got their cliques and everything else. I mean, who knows? I've lived in smaller towns than this before, and it's been far less bigoted than it is here. I'm shocked that a city this size, I mean, it's roughly 25 to 36,000 people, I think, roughly, Zanesville. I'm shocked. And after my experience being in the jail and talking to some of the people in the jail, and of course, you can't believe everything you hear, but some of the stories that I heard, if half of what I heard is true, my God, the FBI should be all over this place. But there seems to be no accountability. They don't have any internal affairs department. There's no oversight. There's no neutral agencies that have any oversight over these people. They just have carte blanche to do whatever they want. I even had an officer, a sergeant, admit to me in a recorded conversation, which is on the YouTube channel as well. He admitted to me that he's committing treason. I mean, I don't know if these people would think they're funny, but I was trying to explain to him that by their actions, they could potentially be committing treason. And I asked him if he was aware of that, and he basically said yes. And I can't remember the words verbatim, but it's in one of the recordings. It was with a Sergeant Patnod with the Zanesville Police Department.
Wow.
Yeah, just a complete disregard for public safety, honestly, in my opinion. And I've just been in search of anybody who's willing to pay attention and hopefully help me hold these people accountable. Now, before I forget, I do want to mention and make sure that Mike DeWine is aware that, well, actually, I think his technical name is it Richard? I think it's Richard Michael DeWine. Anyways, so I want him to be aware that because of this whole action and because of the fact that Michael T. Hughes acted on behalf of the quote-unquote state of Ohio, which Michael DeWine or Richard Michael DeWine represents, and is the quote-unquote governor of, because of the actions that the representative took, it now implicates the state. So not just the city, Zanesville, but also Muskingum County and now Ohio, the state corporation, basically. And so because of their unwillingness to correct the record and because of the fact that they've ignored every document, every attempt that I've made to right this wrong, to make sure that they have the information they need to do what's right, because they've ignored all of that, I've been forced to go through an administrative process with documents and filing notices of claims. And so at this point, here pretty soon, I'm going to be sending out copies of the notice of claim to all principals of the organizations that were involved in all of this, because on its face, this is outright fraud. And there's even more egregious violations and crimes that were committed to get to the court case and the fraud that took place there. So any investigator that knows what they're doing, I easily have enough evidence to constitute a violation of the RICO statute, Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organizations Act, for the federal government. I've made the Department of Justice aware of this, made the FBI aware of this, but they don't want to pay attention. I couldn't get any real response from them whatsoever. So I'm hoping that I can find some adults who are willing to do what they can to right this wrong. I'm doing everything I can, but if I can't trust the courts to process the paperwork, if I can't trust people to pay attention to facts, I'm at a standstill, and that kind of leaves me with very, very limited options. And so at this point, with everything that's happened, and especially, I think the biggest travesty for me is the fact that they stole my property, they stole the firearm, and they refused to give it back. And on top of that, because of the fact that one of the charges was a felony, and they procured the conviction through the court, they manipulated that whole fraud and got all of that. See, now they've affected my ability to even own or possess or purchase firearms. So that's a direct violation of the Second Amendment. You know, I
You've never received that back.
what's that?
You've never received that firearm back.
No, I've attempted multiple times to get it. I even my sister, I had asked her. She said that she would try to get it. She's attempted multiple times. She had some issues. That was part of the reason for the delay. But then also, they were trying to force her to fill out and sign affidavits stating that she would not give me the firearm. And as a precaution, just so you're aware for conversation since it came up, as a precaution, when this all happened through the court and everything else, just so not to give them any further excuses, I made sure to get rid of my firearm. So I gave my firearms to my sister temporarily until I get this all situated and fixed.
Right.
So when I asked, you know, she was going to go get the firearm for me and hold on to it, but she one thing led to another, and she couldn't make it out. But then on top of that, like I said, they were trying to get her to fill out and sign extra paperwork, affidavits, stating that she wouldn't give the property back to me. I don't know what all the details of the documents were exactly. That was kind of the gist of what she told me that I can remember. But yeah, I mean, so I guess I'm out the money that I spent on that property. Like they're not even willing to compensate me back. They're just going to take my property and then give it to somebody else, and force that person to say that they're not, or man or woman, whatever you want to call them, force them to say that they're not going to give the property back to me, the rightful owner, or whatever you want to call it, holder in due course, I guess. As a beneficiary, I guess I'm technically a holder. And see, that's another conflict as well, because I don't know. I don't want to get into all that. There's so much to this, and I've got a lot of the information, like I said, there on the YouTube channel. I could talk about this for hours. This has been going on for 4 years, since late June, early July of 2018. I've been dealing with this noise, and immediately when it started up, I went to my doctors at the time, went to the VA, got checked out. Made sure there wasn't anything wrong with my ears or hearing or none of that stuff. And once I got a clear bill of health, as far as that was concerned, that's when I turned my attention and started filing complaints with the city. And then it's just been a nightmare from there on out. But if you have any questions, if you want any clarifications, feel free to ask. I don't want to sit here and ramble in your ear.
Does Zanesville have a city council?
They do have a city council. I had at one point I considered going and addressing the city council, but after my experience, I wanted to keep my distance. I didn't want to give them any more excuses. I figure if I step foot in the city hall and like in a city council meeting setting, who knows what they could lie and say, and if I was physically there, that could even add more weight to what they're saying. I don't want to give them any excuses, so I just kept my distance. I did, however, I think I mentioned I've reached out multiple times over the phone, left voicemails for the city council member over this area where the property is that I'm located at. But then also I sent emails as well. I've sent multiple emails to not only city council, but the public safety director, the mayor. I've got all those emails going back to 2018.
And what about the state representative?
I've reached out. See, I got a little confused about all that. I started reaching out to Troy Balderson's office because of the fact that Troy Balderson is from here, but because he's a federal representative of the state, if I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, there's nothing that he can necessarily do directly about it. But I figured, he might know somebody in a certain situation or position that could do something about it. But again, I think it comes back to that good old boy mentality or whatever. And with him being from here, apples don't fall far from the tree. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's, part of the group.
May I have your zip code?
Yeah, well, the zip code of the area, it's not mine, but it's 43701. guess that's what they call it. I'm not sure if that's the city or county. I don't know how they designate the zip codes.
43701.
Correct.
Adam Holmes is your state representative.
Yes, thank you. I did reach out to Adam Holmes once or twice. I think it was about the time that I was in and out of the jail, the county jail, I think, with this last matter. Because, like I said, I was reaching out to Troy Balderson's office, and I reached out to Tim Schaefer's office to make them aware, at least make them aware of the situation, not necessarily for them to do anything about it, but just, see if they could offer any help or assistance or guidance, and then make them aware. But then also I reached out to Adam Holmes. There's a recorded conversation on the YouTube channel as well with me reaching out to Adam Holmes' office and letting them know about it. I want to say that was back in roughly July-ish of last year, give or take. Don't quote me on the time frame. But I do know for a fact that I recorded the conversation and I put it on the YouTube channel. And just so you're aware as well, I'm recording this conversation. I'm recording everything just for my own safety.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely want to make sure that I get this information. There's a few people that I want to go and show some of these videos to. I'm not sure what can be done since of the home rule status, but I will definitely try my best to see any direction we may be able to go to assist you. May I have a good number for you, phone number?
Absolutely. Good contact number is 740 647 2521. There was something I was going to say, but it slipped my mind. I don't remember what I was going to say. I was thinking about all the paperwork. I got stacks and stacks of paperwork, documentation from all this stuff. I'm trying to keep all of it in my filing cabinets, but it's been overwhelming my filing cabinets.
Right. Yeah, but I would definitely absolutely look more into taking the court case to a federal level. But I will spread this around. I'll see exactly if there's anything that can be done, and if so, I will definitely reach back out to you.
Yeah, that would be great.
I definitely would not want anyone, especially a member of our military, to be treated in that way. So I know where I'm going to start, but I'm going to reach out to a few people and see what I can dig up for you.
No, I greatly appreciate that. And real quick, while I got you on the phone, I was trying to do some research online, but there's just a ton of misinformation. Would a what do they call it? Would a pardon be a potential option? Would the governor be able to provide a pardon in this type of a situation, or was because of the home rule status or situation, would that prevent something like that from happening?
Well, the pardon is statewide, so in any pardon or any situation, a governor can pardon.
Okay. Because that may be. Sorry, go ahead.
If as long as it was in Ohio, the governor can pardon it.
Okay. Yeah, because that might definitely be something to consider. And obviously, there would have to be an investigation done, and the facts would have to be determined, especially, which I completely get that. I'm not asking for anybody to put the cart before the horse, and like I stated, I got more than enough evidence. So if there isn't enough on the YouTube channel, then I've got more than enough to back it up here, in my own possession. So, and I've got some witnesses as well, family members. Like I said, my sister, I mentioned her. Her and my brother went to one or two of the hearings, so they witnessed some of the interactions and some of the experience that I was forced to endure, so they could speak on behalf of that type of experience and from their perspective, of course. But I could talk to them and see if they'd be willing, if at all ever necessary. That might be
Okay.
an option as well if anybody needs somebody else, like an outside perspective, if you will.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'll go ahead and get started on this on my end and see what I can find out.
That would be terrific. I thank you very much. I greatly appreciate the conversation and you allowing me to share my story with you and my experience. And yeah, I hope that we can work together to make Ohio better, because what's going on here, what I've experienced, is not right. And no one, whether a veteran or non-veteran, man or woman, whatever they identify themselves as, I don't care who they are, no one should have to deal with something like this. We should all have rights that we should be able to count on, and not have them thrown out the window anytime somebody doesn't want to do their jobs.
Absolutely.
So yeah, hopefully we can work together and accomplish that. But I greatly appreciate your time, and yeah, if you need anything, clarifications, verification, you need any more information from me, reach out anytime. I gave you the number there, and then
Yes.
if anybody wants to comment on the postings, they're more than welcome to.
Okay.
And yeah, we can just go from there. But yeah, text or call, whatever's more convenient.
Okay. Brandon, I do appreciate you giving us a call about this today. I'll definitely get right on it.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, what was your name again?
My name is D.
D. Thank you very much, D.
Logan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and keep your head up.
Thank you. You do the same.
Awesome, awesome. Well, take care of yourself. I'll talk to you later, hopefully.
Okay. Bye bye.
All right, bye.